Peace, y'all. Peace. I don't know. I heard somebody talking about, so-called white people, so-called black people, so I wanted to break down this whole Caucasian thing because I see people are still a little bit misconstrued by this and necessarily what it means. A lot of people don't necessarily understand why the so-called white man was labeled the Caucasian, why the Caucasus is such talking about archaeologically, genetically, the diversity in this region is quite, astounding. In fact, you'll see quite a diverse range of people in these areas, ranging from short to tall, light to dark. So just to give you an idea, the Caucasus, all right, as we know, is an area between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Okay. The Black Sea, as you see here, is right above Turkey. A lot of people, again, misinterpretations, literally the Caucasus Mountains was a natural barrier that would have separated Asia from Europe. Okay. Let's see. Let's go a little deeper. We got the North Caucasus, the Ciscaucasus, northern part, right? Black Sea on the west, Caspian on the east. In Russia, geographically, the Northern Caucasus includes the Russian republics, part of the Russian Federation. North Caucasus region is included in the North Caucasian and Southern Federation. You got the Transcaucasus. All right, geographical region roughly corresponds to modern Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. I may have said that wrong. Mostly Russia, Georgia. Okay, so let's go into the origins. Okay, again, I'm just using Wikipedia. All right, this is nothing. I'm not going deep. I'm not doing any like real deep digging. I'm just trying to do some basic stuff so anybody can understand this. All right, so let's do the term Caucasus, derived from Caucus, the son of the biblical Torgama and legendary father of Nok peoples. Okay, so what is this story? Who are these guys that they're talking about? Okay, let's go to Tagarma. Tagarma is a figure in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, right? Tagarma. In Genesis 10, the list of descendants of Noah that represents the people known to the ancient Hebrews. All right, Tagarma is among the descendants of Japheth. And it's thought to represent some people located in Anatolia, all right? Turkey, okay? It's just Anatolia's Turkey. Let's keep it simple. Medieval traditions, they claim Tagarma as the mythical ancestor of peoples in the Caucasus and Western Asia, including the Georgians, Armenians, and some Turkish peoples. Okay, let's learn about some of these guys. So Genesis 10:3, he's listed in 10, is the third son of Gomer and the grandson of Japheth, brother of Ashkenaz, okay, and Rephath, okay. The name is again mentioned in the book of Ezekiel as a nation from the far north. Ezekiel 38:6 mentions Tagarma together with Tubal as supplying soldiers to the army of Gog. Okay, who's Gog? Gog and Magog, all right, individuals, tribes, or lands. The individual, Magog is his land, okay? We've heard of they have misconstrued the term Gog and Magog. I've seen it used in comic books. All right, a legend was attached to Gog and Magog by the time of the Roman period at the gates of Alexander, were erected by Alexander the Great to repel the tribe. Romanized Jewish historian Josephus knew them as the nation descended from Magog, the Japhethites, as in Genesis, and explained them to be the Scythians. Okay? In the hands of early Christian writers, they became apocalyptic hordes, and throughout the medieval period, variously identified as the Vikings, the Huns, the Khazars, the Mongols, the Turanians, or other nomads, or even the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Interesting. So we have a connection with Caucasians, Gomer from the Bible, Japheth, Gog and Magog, the Scythians, okay? If you don't know who the Scythians are, let's get quick feedback on the Scythians. All right, these were the people who, they were tatted up, right? Nomadic people, the Pontic steppe. They were part of the wider Scythian culture stretching from the Eurasian steppe, which included many people that are distinguished from the Scythians. Because of this, a broad concept referring to all early Eurasian nomads as Scythians has sometimes been used. So bam, right there, that tells you that Scythians is another catch-all term, okay? It doesn't necessarily talk about any particular nation of people. It's just a vague term used to describe early Eurasian nomads, okay? Within this concept, the actual Scythians are variously referred to as classical Scythians, European Scythians, Pontic Scythians, or Western Scythians. Use of the term Scythians for all early Eurasian nomads has, however, led to much confusion in literature, and the validity of such terminology is controversial. Other names for that concept are therefore preferable. They are generally believed to have been of Iranian origin. They spoke a language of the Scythian branch of the Eastern Iranian languages. Okay? So this is telling us there's a direct link between Caucasians and Iranians, right? From Caucasians, right, to Gomer, to from the Bible, to Japheth, to Gog and Magog, to Scythians, now to Iranians, right? Generally believed to be the speak is a branch of the Eastern Iranian language, practiced a variant of ancient Iranian religion among the earliest peoples to master mounted warfare. The Scythians replaced the Sumerians as the dominant power on the Pontic steppe in the 8th century BC. They and related peoples came to dominate the entire Eurasian steppe. They related people creating what has been called the First Central Asian Nomadic Empire, based in what is modern-day Ukraine and southern Russia. Okay? Let's go back. Let's read this real quick. In the 7th century BC, the Scythians crossed the Caucasus and frequently raided the Middle East, along with the Sumerians, playing an important role in the political developments of the region. Around 650 to 630 BC, Scythians briefly dominated the Medes of the western Iranian plateau, stretching their power to the borders of Egypt. After losing control of Media, the Scythians continued intervening in Middle Eastern affairs, playing a leading role in the destruction of the Syrian Empire and the sack of Nineveh in 612 BC. Why is this important, the sack of Nineveh? Let's take a look, right? The sack of Nineveh, the destruction of the Assyrian Empire in the sack of Nineveh, okay? An allied army combined the forces of the besieged Nineveh, sacked 700 of hectares of what was at that time the greatest city in the world. And the fall of Nineveh led to the destruction of the Neo-Assyrian Empire over the next 3 years. Archaeological records show that the capital of the once mighty Assyrian Empire was extensively de-urbanized and depopulated in the decades and centuries following the battle. Okay? Babylon became the imperial epicenter of Mesopotamia for the first time in over 1,000 years, leading to the Neo-Babylonian Empire claiming imperial continuity as a new dynasty. So what happened is, after the death of King Ashurbanipal, the once mighty empire was becoming increasingly volatile. All right? Neighboring states and groups, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, the Scythians, the Sumerians, became increasingly hostile. Upon the death, a series of bitter and bloody wars occurred. An alliance formed between external states. The Syrian Chronicles end abruptly in 639, after the destruction of Susa, the capital of Elam, and the subjugation of a rebellious Babylon ruled by Ashurbanipal's own brother, Shamash Shum-Ukin. Business records are missing after 631 BC. The primary sources are written afterwards by a victorious Neo-Babylonian from the region of Nabopolassar. Okay. By the Babylonian tradition set down by Herodotus much later, a Hebrew tradition attributed to Nahum, and by reference in Egyptian chronicles, all were hostile to Assyria. There are also legends that have grown up in the centuries among peoples who descend from the involved nationalities. All right, the Medes are ruled by kings. So you got accounts of the battle. You got aftermath. There would be 7 more campaigns. He would fight on for several years. Ultimate fate not known recorded, may have been killed. Okay, so this is basically the fall of one of the probably strongest empires of the ancient world in the Battle of Nineveh. The Scythians were a major part of that. All right, let's go back some. Gog and Magog, Togarma, right? Remember Togarma. Another Togarma, Several later ethnological traditions have claimed Tamarga as the mythical ancestors of various people located in Western Asia and the Caucasus. Jewish historian Josephus, I don't know if y'all know about Mr. Josephus, Yosef ben Matityahu, okay? He was a Roman Jewish historian, a Romano-Jewish historian? Where they do that? And Flavius Josephus and the Christian theologians Jerome and Isidore of Seville regarded Togarma as the father of the Phrygians. Okay, who are the Phrygians? Okay, remember, Togarma, Japhethite, we're talking Asiatic, the father of the Phrygians. Who are the Phrygians? An ancient Indo-European people initially dwelling in the southern Balkans, okay, based out of Gordium, okay, the capital city was located at the site of modern Yeshayuk, southwest of Ankara. So we're looking at Turkey, right? This is in Turkey. The Phrygian kingdom, based out of Gordium, arose in the 8th century. It was invaded by the Sumerians, or the Cimmerians, however you want to say it. Phrygia was briefly conquered by its neighbor, Lydia, the Lydians, okay, before it passed successively into the Persian Empire of Cyrus the Great, and later the Empire of Alexander and his successors. Understand what they're saying here. The Phrygian kingdom, all right, older than, based out of Gordium, all right, older than the Persian Empire that it successively passed into, older than the later empire of Alexander and his successors. After this, it was taken by the Attalids of Pergamon and eventually became a part of the Roman Empire. The last mention of the Phrygian language and literature dates to 5th century AD, and it was likely extinct by the 7th century. All right, here's the Phrygian. Phrygians are known for what? I don't know if y'all know. Phrygians are known mainly for one thing. Am I spelling that right? As you see, it's the third thing on the list. The Phrygian cap. What's the Phrygian cap? Look at that. Papa Smurf. Look at that. Interesting, huh? Liberty. Lady Liberty. Interesting. The Phrygian cap. Let's take a look. It's a soft conical cap with the apex bent over, associated in antiquity with several peoples, Eastern Europe, Anatolia, Phrygia, Dacia, and the Balkans. It came to signify freedom and the pursuit of liberty. Although Phrygian caps did not originally function as liberty caps. So what did they function as? What were their functions? Okay. The Phrygian cap was associated with Phrygian Attis. Okay. Who was Attis, the consort of his mother Cybele? His priests were eunuchs, the Galli, as explained by origin myths pertaining to Attis and castration. Attis was also a Phrygian god of vegetation, the consort of Cybele. Okay, she may have possibly been a forerunner. Statues of Plut women, sometimes sitting, have been found. Phrygia's only known goddess. She was probably its national deity, the cult of which had then become Gracified. At around the same time, the cap appears in depictions of the legendary King Midas. Okay? And other Phrygians in Greek-based paintings and sculpture. Such images predate the earliest surviving literary references to the cap. By extension, the Phrygian cap also came to be applied to several other non-Greek-speaking people, barbarians in the classical sense. Most notable of these extended senses of Phrygian were the Trojans. Right? Trojans. And other Westernly Anatolian peoples who in Greek perception were synonymous with the Phrygians and whose heroes, Paris, all right, Aeneas, Trojan hero, son of Aphrodite, and Ganymede, okay, divine hero is Troy, were all regularly depicted with a Phrygian cap. Other Greek earthenware of antiquity also depict Amazons and so-called Scythian archers with Phrygian caps. Although these are military depictions, the headgear is distinguished from Phrygian helmets by long ear flaps, and the figures also are identified as barbarians by their trousers. Okay. It was made of wool, soft leather. The Greeks had already developed the military helmet, a similarly characteristic flipped-over tip. Now, in the Greek concept passed to the Romans in an extended sense, and thus encompassed not only to Phrygians and Trojans, but also the other near neighbors of the Greeks. On Trajan's column, the Roman triumphal column in Rome that commemorates Roman Emperor Trajan's victory in the Dacian Wars, the Phrygian cap adorns the heads of Trajan's Dacian prisoners. The prisoner accompanying Trajan in the monumental 3-meter tall statue of Trajan in the ancient city of Laodicea is wearing a Phrygian cap. Parthians appear with Phrygian caps. Let's see, in the 2nd century, which commemorates Roman victories over the Parthian Empire. Likewise, with Phrygian caps, but for Gauls, appear in 2nd century friezes built on the 4th century Ark of Constantine. Reappears in figures related to the 1st to the 4th century religion, Mithraism. As you see the Liturgy cap right there, or the Mithraic mysteries. Okay, this is that guy who also is connected to Zoroaster, right? Zoroastrianism, that's connected to Jesus directly. This astrology-centric Roman mystery cult, astrology-centric, so they knew about the zodiac, Roman mystery cult, all right, projected itself with pseudo-Oriental trappings, okay, in order to distinguish itself from both traditional Roman religion and from the other mystery cults. So we have a clear distinction here. These people were against the Romans, right? They were against the Romans, right? Let's go back a little bit. Back to the Phrygians. Back to Tagarma, right? Back to Tagarma. Most scholars identify so. Another Tagarma, this one being the son. We talked about the Phrygians. Several ancient Christian authors, including Saint Hippolytus Eusebius of Caesarea and Bishop Theodoret, regarded him as the father of Armenians. Medieval Jewish traditions linked him with Turkish peoples, including the Khazars. Okay, if you haven't heard about the Khazars, there's a lot of people saying a few different things about those guys. According to Moses of Korean's History of Armenia, Thargamos was thought to have lived in Babylon before he received the land between 2 seas and 2 mountains, or the Caucasus, in his possession. He then settled near Mount Ararat. Okay, this is east of Turkey, and divided his land among his sons. Okay, he had 8 sons, one named Caucus. All right, let's read a little bit about Caucus in the biblical figure. His story is narrated in the compilation of the medieval Georgian Chronicles. Kartlis, I'm going to butcher this. Kovreba is a conventional English name for the principal compendium of medieval Georgian historical texts, or the life of Kartli. Kartli being a core region of ancient and medieval Georgia. The legend has it that he was a son of Tergamos, thus brother of Haos. All right, Haos the Great, legendary patriarch, founder of the Armenian nation. Okay. Movakos, Lycos, the ancestor of the Lesgic peoples. Okay. Heros, medieval monarchy, and the Iberian Albanian frontier. Okay. A medieval monarchy which emerged in the Caucasus on the Iberian Albanian frontier. Think about that. Where's Iberia? Why would it be over there? Why is this called Swarthus Mir? Well, we know it's because it's, that just means the Black Sea. I just wanted to mess with y'all. Kartlos, known to be ancestor of Georgian people, and Egros took their origin. So the genealogy goes Noah, Japheth, right? Gomer. One of the 3 sons, you got Gomer. He's the eldest son of Japheth. Tagarma. Takakis. Okay, who were some of his descendants? All right. Legendary forefather of the Vulcans was the Kafka, hence the name Caucasians. One of the ethnicons meant in the ancient Georgian written sources signifying the ancestors of the Chechens. The Chechens, all right, Northeast Caucasian, and the English. All right, another Northeast Caucasian ethnic group. As appears from above, the Volnaks, at least by name, are presented as the most Caucasian people of all the Caucasians. Caucasus, Caucasians in the Georgian historical tradition. Very interesting. All right. So again, we see connections with Caucasians to Asians to Phrygians to Scythians. All right, it gets a little complicated. Let's see, Tagarma's tribes. We talked a little about Tagarma. Let's go back one more. Check out origin of the name Caucasus. So let's do prehistory. The territory was inhabited by Homo erectus since... Oh, I lost it. That's political geography. Sorry about that, y'all. Here we go, prehistory. Dating back 1.8 million years, were found fossils in an archaeological site in Georgia. Homo erectus georgicus. Okay, there were a population of early Pleistocene hominins. All right, Pleistocene. Okay, we already know for a fact that in the Pleistocene, if you don't know what Pleistocene means, I want people to be totally sure with what they're reading about. All right, in the Pleistocene era, PLEI. Here we go, Pleistocene era. They lasted from about 2,580,000 to 11,700 years ago, spanning the world's most recent period of repeated glaciations. So this is essentially the last ice age. So during the last ice age, all right, they found these back 1.8 million years. Obviously, you see the 2 million, 2.5 million to about 11,000. That's the Pleistocene, the window. All right, they were found. They classified these assemblage of fossils. Right, Keralaxis culture. All right, who are the Keralaxis? They're a trans-Caucasian culture with a civilization traditionally regarded as the date of its end. In some locations, it may have disappeared as early as 2600 or 2700. Let's read a little bit about the Keralaxis culture. All right, because again, this is the most ancient reference we have to the area of Caucasian. All right, early history, the formative processes, complex, and the date and circumstance of its rise have long been debated. Shulaveri Shomu culture preceded the Keralaxis culture in the area. Okay, there are many differences between these two cultures, so the connection was not clear. Later, it was suggested that the Sioni culture of Eastern Georgia possibly represented a transition from the Shulaveri to the Keralaxis cultural complex. All right, so obviously there were two different cultures in this land at 4000 BC. Let's read about the Shulaveri Shomu culture. Again, this is Wikipedia. I'm just hitting links. I'm doing digging. I'm taking my time. I want to know what I'm talking about. Is a late Neolithic, Eneolithic. What does Neolithic mean for those who don't know? All right, what is Neolithic? Okay, all these terms, of course, invented, but this will give you an idea. All right, this is after the Pleistocene. Okay, so this is the end of the Pleistocene. After the Pleistocene is over, so it's about 12,000, 11,700 years ago. So remember, it goes from Pleistocene to the Neolithic. All right, so from the Pleistocene to Neolithic, the late Neolithic era, that means close to modern day. All right, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, as well as parts of northern Iran. The name comes from the town of Shulaveri in the Republic of Georgia. It's been distinguished. Let's read about it. It covers the 6th to 5th millennia. According to the material culture examples found in the sites, depict that the main activities of the population were farming and breeding. It predates the Keralaxis culture, which flourished in this area. Later on, the Trialetsi culture emerged. All right, Sioni culture of Eastern Georgia possibly represents a transition from the Shulaveri to the Keralaxis. Building mud brick, circular, oval architecture is typical for this culture. Okay, mud brick, circular, oval, and semi-oval architecture. The buildings were in different sizes based on their aim of use. The larger ones, diameters 2 to 5, used as living areas. Smaller buildings were used as storage. They were researched well during the digging. Have been identified as belonging to the 7th millennium BC, the second half of the 6th millennium. Although Shulaveri Shomutepe complex firstly was attributed to the Neolithic era, it is now considered as a material and cultural example of the Neolithic era, except the upper layers where metal objects have been discovered, as in Kramis, Didigora, and Arucho 1. Interesting. So what is Neolithic? Let's just be clear here. Okay, Neolithic. Okay, or Chalcolithic. All right, talking about the first use of metal. All right, it is a transition between the Neolithic and the Bronze Age. So if we were to write a tree or a guide or a chart or a diagram to give people an understanding of this, in Neolithic or the Copper Age, right, comes after the Stone Age or the Neolithic, which came before the Ice Age. Which comes after the Ice Age, which was the Pleistocene. Pleistocene, Ice Age, Neolithic, Stone Age, Neolithic, Copper Age. So we're introducing metals. Okay, in the Chalcolithic period, copper predominated in metalworking technology. Hence, it was the period before it was discovered that adding tin to copper formed bronze. Okay, so that was a key. That moved us into the Bronze Age once they started to add that tin. Okay, where did they get that tin from? Okay, there are huge deposits of tin in many different places. You'll be surprised, to be honest. They have actually found large tin mines, if I'm not mistaken. I want to show you guys. So I'll show you some places where they found some tin. Sorry, y'all. It's Wi-Fi is acting up. In the meantime, it's taking too long. Here we go, tin. Sorry about that. Bam. Back to tin. All right, let's talk about the chemical element. I want to talk about the metal. All right. Mining and smelting. Okay. Let's see, atomic number 50. Let's see if we can get into some. All right, here we go. Largest companies producing tin. All right, this isn't today. This is today now. As you see, China got 1.5 million in reserve. Interesting. Let's see. Let's do a quick search. Let's see the oldest source of tin. Oldest source of tin. Again, without tin, you can't get the Bronze Age. Okay, tin sources in trade in ancient times. Tin is an essential metal. All right, its use began in the Middle East and the Balkans. Let's see, early use. All right, beginning of the Bronze Age, different physical properties. Tanninite, cassiterite, different tin, archaeological point. Ancient sources. Europe has very few sources of tin. Therefore, throughout ancient times, it was imported long distance from known tin mining districts of antiquity. These were the Ore Mountains in Central Europe, along the modern border between Germany and Czech Republic, the Iberian Peninsula, Brittany in modern France, and Devon and Cornwall in southwestern Britain. There are several smaller sources of tin in the Balkans, and another minor source of tin exists in Italy. Asia. Western Asia has very little tin ore. Hold up. So there's very few sources of tin in Europe, and there's very little tin ore in Asia. The few sources are too insignificant to have played a major role during most of ancient history. However, it is possible that they were exploited at the start of the Bronze Age and responsible for the development of early bronze manufacturing technology. While rich veins of tin, let's go to Africa. While rich veins of tin are known to exist in Central and South Africa, whether these were exploited during ancient times is still hotly debated. However, the Bantu culture of Zimbabwe are known to have actively mined, smelted, and traded tin between the 11th and 15th centuries. In Americas, tin deposits exist in many parts of South America, with minor deposits. Many parts of South America, with minor deposits in southern Peru, Colombia, Brazil, northwest Argentina, major deposits of exploitable cassiterite in northern Bolivia. These deposits were exploited as early as 1000 AD in the manufacture of tin bronze by Andean cultures, including the later Inca Empire, which considered tin bronze the imperial alloy. In North America, the only known exploitable source of tin during ancient times is located in the Zacatecas tin province of north central Mexico, which supplied West Mexican cultures with enough tin for bronze production. Okay. The earliest sources of tin are still unknown and the subject of much debate in astrology. Understand this. They're not sure where they got the tin from. We just saw you didn't get it from Europe. There's very few sources. You didn't get it from Asia because there's very little tin there. Where else could you have got it from? I mean, there's not too many places left after that. Let's go back. Talk about the Neolithic era, tin sources and trade. Go back. What I want to show you now is a little bit of information. Sorry, y'all. It's moving a little slow. Cut off some of these things. What really got me into this subject is of checking out this guy, Lev Nussenbaum, who wrote under the pen names Assad Bey and Kurban Said. He's a writer and journalist born in Russia to a Jewish family. But he liked to play dress up a lot. Very interesting guy. Wrote a lot of really interesting books. Died at the age of 36. Died very young. See if I can move this along. We'll go back to the Chalcolithic. Let's learn about the Keralaxis culture. Okay. So we looked at the culture that predated the Keralaxis cultures, right? Remember, this culture came after the Shulaveri Shomu culture. All right. They were distinct. Okay. The Sioni culture was the bridge between the two. Okay. So you had the Shulaveri, then the Sioni, and then it took us to the Keralaxis based on this information. At many sites, the Sioni cultural layers can be seen as intermediary. Nowadays, scholars consider the Kartli area as well as the Kakheti area as key to forming the earliest phase. To a large extent, this appeared as an indigenous culture of Caucasus that was formed over a long period and at the same time incorporating foreign influences. That sounds kind of like a opposites. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how could it be? How could it appear to be an indigenous culture of the Caucasus, and at the same time incorporate foreign influences? There are some indications of the overlapping in time of the Keralaxis and the Uruk cultures. All right, such context may go back even into the Middle Uruk period. Okay, these are named after the Sumerian city of Uruk. We're going to Sumeria now, right? This period existed from the Proto-Historic to the Early Bronze Age, after the Ubaid period, and before the Jemdet Nasser period. All right, so rather quickly, elements of Keralaxis culture started to proceed westward to the Erzurum Plain, southwest of Cilicia. So where is this? The Erzurum Plain, eastern Turkey. Okay, so it spread to eastern Turkey, westward to eastern Turkey, southwest to Cilicia. Sorry about that. It's the kingdom of Cilicia, to the southeast into the area of Lake Van. Where's Lake Van? The largest lake in eastern Turkey. A saline soda lake, receiving water from numerous small streams. Let's see. Then you got below the Urmia Basin in Iran, another salt lake in Iran. And then you got the Golden Tepe, the archaeological site, western Iran. It proceeded into the present-day Syria and as far as Palestine. Wow. So again, we have a connection with the Caucasus that literally goes directly into Iran, Syria, and as far as Palestine. Its territory corresponds to large parts of modern Armenia, Azerbaijan, Chechnya, Dagestan. Where is this at? I'm not sure where Dagestan is. Oh, okay. It's in the far west, eastern portion of Russia. Far western, excuse me. Georgia, Ingushetia, North Ossetia, parts of Iran, and Turkey. At Sos Hoyuk in the Erzurum province, remember we talked about Erzurum, that's eastern Turkey, right? In the Erzurum province, Turkey, early forms of Keralaxis pottery were found in association with local ceramics. at Arslan Tepe, Turkey. Okay. It's very interesting how a lot of the stuff they're finding is in Turkey. And we know that the Turks were a conglomerate, right? Who are the Turks? Okay, let's break this down. Talking about his story, antiquity, the Turkish people, Anatolians, okay? The Ottoman Empire, okay? You have a Turkish diaspora as well. Okay, let's go into some of the early history and how we get to the Ottomans. So it was first inhabited by hunter-gatherers. It was inhabited by various ancient Anatolian peoples. Who were Anatolians? Indo-Europeans. We know that's a language, so you can't be peoples aren't languages. Indo-European peoples of the Near East identified by their use of the Anatolian languages. These people were among the oldest Indo-European ethno-linguistic groups, one of the most archaic because Anatolians were what? The first or among the first branches, okay? After Alexander the Great, the area was Hellenized. So that's telling you that what? What does Hellenized mean? What's Hellenized? Let's look. Some people don't know what Hellenization is. The historical spread of ancient Greek culture, religion, and to a lesser extent, language. Why Hellenization? It has started in southwestern Anatolia's Lycia, Caria, and Pisidia. When it was advantageous to do so, places like Side and Aspendos invented Greek-themed origin myths. Invented! An inscription shows that in the 4th century, Aspendos claimed ties to Argos. Inscription is very influential in the modern study of Thrace. Hellenization had its limitations. Areas that were affected by Greek culture entailed mostly Seleucid urban centers where Greek was commonly spoken. The countryside was largely unaffected, and most of its inhabitants speaking Syriac and clinging to their native traditions. So obviously, Hellenization was a foreign influence coming from Greece and the early so-called Greek people. We know for a fact that there were no Greek people. There was no conglomerate of people who came to be known as the term Greek. The Greeks had many nation states and, called themselves depending on their nation. All right, as we move on, we get to the Abbasid Caliph. Here we go. So let's see. The early Turkish people lived somewhere between Central Asia and northwestern China. Early surviving the 8th century, they were erected, include words not common to Turkish. Although the ancient Turks were nomadic, they traded wool, leather, carpet, and horses for wood, silk, vegetables, and grain. They had large ironworking stations. They were followers of Tengrism. All right, what's Tengrism? The ancient medieval Central Asian religion state religion is a Turco-Mongolic native religious movement. So we got Turkey and Mongolians. Okay, Asiatics. Sharing the cult of the sky god Tengri, though they were also adherents of Manichaeism, major religion, by the Persian prophet Mani, Nestorian Christianity. Oh, let me see that picture. That's an interesting image that they just showed with that. Are you going to show it again? Interesting. Manichaeism, Nestorian Christianity. Okay. Very different Christianity. Buddhism. Okay. However, during the Muslim conquest, the Turks entered the Muslim world proper as slaves. The booty of Arab raids and conquest. The Turks began converting to Islam after Muslim conquest of Transoxiana. Okay. Through the efforts of missionaries, Sufis, and merchants. Interesting. The Turks began to convert to Islam through the efforts of missionaries, Sufis, and merchants. Although initiated by the Arabs, the conversion of the Turks to Islam was filtered through Persian and Central Asian culture. Okay. Under the Umayyads, most were domestic servants. Whilst under the Abbasid Caliphate, okay, we're going into the early Islam, increasing numbers were trained as soldiers. So you have a people who were enslaved. These people, okay, were enslaved, Okay, long before black people was ever heard of. All right, they were enslaved. They were the booty of Arab raids and conquest. They were converted, right? And then they were trained as domestic servants, then soldiers. By the 9th century, Turkish commanders were leading the caliph's Turkish troops into battle. Okay. As the Abbasid Caliphate declined, Turkish officers assumed more military and political power, taking over or establishing provincial dynasties with their own corps of Turkish troops. So these Turkish people, once enslaved, took over and overthrew their original conquerors. During the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks, admirers of the Persian civilization, grew in number and were able to occupy the eastern province of the Abbasid Empire. The Seljuk Turks, a Sunni Muslim dynasty that became Persianate and contributed to the Turco-Persian tradition in the Middle East and Central Asia. Interesting. The Seljuks established both the Seljuk Empire and the Sultanate of Rum. And the Sultanate of Rum? What's the Sultanate of Rum? Let's check it out. Again, a lot of people just like to scroll through shit. They don't never take the time to look through. Let's find out some of these things. It was a Turco-Persian Sunni Muslim state established in the parts of Anatolia which had been conquered from the Byzantine Empire by the Seljuk Empire, which was established by the Seljuk Turks. The name Rum was a synonym for Roman. Although it derives from the ancient Arabic name for Rome itself, a loan from Koine Greek, Romans, citizens of the Eastern Roman Empire. Interesting. So you're telling me that after the Muslims took over, Roman Turks, not Seljuk, Roman Turks, who were admirers of the Persian civilization, occupied the Abbasid Empire. By 1055, the Roman, remember Seljuk is Roman. Turco-Persian Sunni Muslim Empire is Roman. We just saw it. The Sultanate of Rome. Rum is Rome. Look at the double-headed eagle. Looks familiar? Very. The symbol of the Seljuk Turks. Although ethnically Turkic, the Seljuk Turks appreciated and became the purveyors of the Persian culture rather than the Turkish culture, or let's just say the Roman culture. They won the battle against the Byzantines and opened the gates of Anatolia to them. Nonetheless, the Turkish language and Islam were introduced and gradually spread over the region. And the slow transition from predominantly Christian and Greek-speaking Anatolia to a predominantly Muslim and Turkish-speaking one was underway. But either way, it was Roman. In dire straits, the Byzantine Empire turned to the west for help, setting in motion the pleas that led to the First Crusade. Once the Crusaders took Iznik in Turkey, historically known as Nicaea, the Seljuk Turks established the Sultanate of Rome, from their new capital, Konya, in 1097. So Rome went east as far as Turkey. By the 12th century, the Europeans had begun to call the Anatolian region Turkia, or Turkey, meaning the land of the Turks. The Turkish society of Anatolia was divided into urban, rural, and nomadic populations. Other Turkmen tribes, the Anatolian tribes, were more numerous, rejecting the sedentary lifestyle, adhered to an Islam impregnated with animism and shamanism from their Central Asian steppeland origins, which then mixed with new Christian influences from the popular and syncretist Islam with its mystical and revolutionary aspects. Sects such as the Alevis and the Bektashis emerged. I tell people all the time, people talk about the amount of sects in Christianity, man. In Islam, it might be even worse. Furthermore, the intermarriage between the Turks and the local inhabitants, as well as the conversion of many to Islam, also increased the Turkish-speaking Muslim population in Anatolia. Now, so what happens next? All right. You have, let's see, by 1243, the Mongols come and beat these Roman Turks. They became the new rulers of Anatolia. All right. Political instability leading to the strengthening of Turkoman principalities called the Beyliks. Okay, the Beyliks. Small principalities in Anatolia governed by beys. the first of which were founded at the end of the 11th century. A second, more extensive period took place as a result of the decline of the Seljuk Sultanate of Rome. So once the Romans left, the Beys came in. As we know, Bey means governor, it's a Moorish term. When the Mongols defeated the Seljuk Turks, the Roman Turks, and conquered Anatolia. So when the Mongols beat the Romans and conquered Anatolia, the Turks became the vassals of the Ilkhans. All right, who were the Ilkhanate? These are the Mongols. Okay, House of Hulagu. These are the Khans. As the Mongols occupied more lands in Asia Minor, the Turks moved further into Western Anatolia. By the last decade of the 13th century, the Ilkhans and their Seljuk vassals lost control. A number of Turkish lords managed to establish themselves as rulers, known as beyliks or emirates. Among these beyliks stretched the beyliks of Karasai, Saruhan, Aydin, Menteşe, Tekke. Inland from Tekke was Hamid, and east of Karasi was the beylik of Jermian. All right. Let's see. Although the Ottomans, to the northwest of Anatolia was the small and at this stage insignificant Ottoman beylik. All right. So this is in northwest Anatolia. District and located bordering to the west. All right. It was a small and at this stage insignificant Ottoman beylik. It was hemmed into the east by other more substantial powers. So, tribalism is what we ultimately get, right? These beyliks established tribalism all over this nation, in the nation of Anatolia. All right. Although the Ottomans were only a small principality among the numerous Turkish beyliks and thus posed the smallest threat, the location in northwestern Anatolia in the former Byzantine Empire of Bithynia became a fortunate position for their future conquest. The Latins. Who are the Latins? These were Italic peoples. Okay? They're people in that Roman area who had conquered the city of Constantinople. The Latins conquered Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade, and they established a Latin empire. Okay? What's the Latin Empire? Everybody says, "Oh, I'm Latina, I'm Latino." Okay. You're Latino. Not to be confused with Roman Empire or Romania. So that's just telling you what Latin refers to. It was a feudal crusader state founded by the leaders of the Fourth Crusade on lands captured from the Byzantine Empire. The Latin Empire was intended to replace the Byzantine Empire as a recognized Roman Empire in the East, with a Western Catholic emperor enthroned in place of the Eastern Orthodox Roman emperors. The Fourth Crusade had originally been called to retake the Muslim-controlled city of Jerusalem, but a sequence of economic and political events culminated in the Crusader army sacking the city of Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. Originally, the plan had been to restore the deposed Byzantine emperor Isaac II Angelos, who had been usurped by Alexios III Angelos, to the throne. The Crusaders had promised financial military aid by Isaac's son Alexios, which they had planned to continue to Jerusalem. When the Crusaders reached Constantinople, the situation quickly turned volatile. And while Isaac and Alexios briefly ruled, the Crusaders did not receive the payment they had hoped for. In April 1204, they captured and plundered the city's enormous wealth. So basically, you have this empire who was founded off the sacking of a state that they actually were coming to protect. The Crusaders selected their own emperor from among their own ranks, Baldwin of Flanders, and divided the territory of the Byzantine Empire into various new vassal Crusader states. The empire's authority was immediately challenged by Byzantine rump states led by the Lascaris family in Nicaea and the Komnenos family in Trebizond. Also connected to the Angelo challenge Latin authority. Like the term Byzantine Empire, Latin Empire was not a contemporary term. The Byzantines referred to the Latin Empire as the Francocratia, or rule of the Franks. The Franks? You mean those barbarians, those Gallic people, or the Latinocratia? And the Latin emperors themselves referred to the empire by various names, commonly Imperium Constantinopolitanum, but also Imperium Romanae and Imperium Romanorum. The term Romania had been used unofficially by the population of the Byzantine Empire for their country for centuries. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So let's go on. So you had the sacking of Constantinople, right? The creation of the Latin Empire. Very brief. Okay. The Latins divided the former Byzantine territories among themselves and forced the Byzantine emperors into exile at Nicaea. From 1261 onwards, the Byzantines were largely preoccupied with regaining their control in the Balkans. Toward the end of the 13th century, as Mongol power began to decline, the Turkoman chiefs assumed greater independence. Under its founder, Osman I, the nomadic Ottoman Beylik expanded along the Sakarya River and westwards towards the Sea of Marmara. Thus, the population of Western Asia Minor had largely become Turkish-speaking and Muslim in religion. It was under his son, Orhan I, who had attacked and conquered the important urban center of Bursa, proclaiming it as the Ottoman capital, that the Ottoman Empire developed considerably. So we have a date, a starting date. They conquered the important urban center of Bursa. What's Bursa? Let's read about Bursa real quick. All right. Huge. Okay, because again, it goes back to today. I'm going to show you how it connects to today and how we view individuals, how we view nations. All right. Where's Bursa? Let's talk about Bursa real quick. Open a new tab. I'll let that load. In the meantime, proclaiming as the Ottoman capital, it developed considerably. In 1354, it crossed into Europe and established a foothold in the Gallipoli Peninsula. All right, taking Ankara. Many Turks began to settle. Yada, yada, yada. The Byzantines were not the only ones to suffer from the Ottoman advance. Orhan annexed the Turkic village of Karasai, so he started annexing lands. Gains in Anatolia were matched by those in Europe. Let's read about Bursa real quick, y'all. Northwestern city, the fourth most populous city in Turkey. Let's read about a little bit of its history. Around 5200 BC, it was followed by the ancient Greek city of Sais, where Philip V Macedonian granted Prusius. He rebuilt the city and named it Prusa. Okay, so from Prusa became Bursa. Okay, let's see. After 128 years of rule, it bequeathed the entire kingdom. The last king of Bithynia bequeathed the entire kingdom to the Roman Empire in 74 BC. Interesting. An early Roman treasure was found in the vicinity of Bursa, composed of a woman's silver toilet articles. It is now in the British Museum. Okay, so it was the first major city of the early Ottoman Empire. Population of Bursa was 45,000 in 1487. Despite this, it remained to be the most important administrative commercial center in the empire until Mehmed II conquered Constantinople. So until Constantinople, this was probably the most important city in Ottoman Turkish civilization. Let's see. You had conquest. They wanted to restore power in the Balkans. Okay, what's the Balkans? A lot of people aren't familiar with this region in southeastern Europe. Various geopolitical history, very, very muddy waters here. You're talking about, a lot of people have claims to a lot of different things, a lot of tribalism. The settlers consisted of soldiers, nomads, farmers, artisans, merchants, dervishes, preachers, and other religious functionaries. 1443, Ottoman armies under Sultan Mehmed II conquered Constantinople. Okay, he reconstructed and repopulated the city and made it the new Ottoman capital. After the fall of Constantinople, May 29th, 1453, 53-day siege, the Ottoman Empire entered a long period of conquest and expansion. Okay. You have even more expansions. In 1683 was met by ambushes and further defeats. So this is one of the first losses we see. His successor, Suleiman the Magnificent, further expanded the conquest to conquer Hungary and Central European territories. Following Suleiman's death, Ottoman victories continued less frequently than before. The island of Cyprus was conquered. However, after its defeat of the Battle of Vienna, the Ottoman army was met by ambushes and further defeats. The 1699 Treaty of Karlawitz, which granted Austria the provinces of Hungary and Transylvania, marked the first time in history that the Ottoman Empire actually relinquished territory. So we have a date. Okay. The Battle of Vienna, 1683. Okay. Major defeat. 1699, they did a Treaty of Karlawitz. Okay. Granted Austria the provinces of Hungary and Transylvania. the first time in history that the Ottoman Empire actually relinquished territory. By the 19th century, okay, the empire began to decline. Uprisings occurred. The last quarter of the 19th and early part of the 20th saw some 7 to 9 million Muslim refugees migrate to Anatolia and eastern Thrace. Okay. Program of forcible. Okay. By 1913, the government of the Committee of Union and Progress, all right, or the Committee of the Ottoman Union, okay, these are Ottomans who are trying to Turkify, I guess would be the word, started a program of forcible Turkification of non-Turkish minorities. By 1914, World War I broke out, and the Turks scored some successes in Gallipoli. During the Battle of the Dardanelles in 1915, during World War I, the government of the Committee of Union and Progress continued to implement its Turkification policies, which affected non-Turkish minorities such as the Armenians during the Armenian Genocide. 1.5 million. Okay, 1.5 million. The Greeks during various campaigns of ethnic cleansing and expulsion. Okay, the Greek genocide, the Pontic genocide. Why don't they talk about these genocides? Okay, let's check this out real quick. Because again, we have a lot of people that misconstrue history. The misconstruction of history. The literal, just people will literally just say whatever the fuck they want about history. Open link, a new tab. Next, you had in 1918, the Ottoman government agreed to the Mudros Armistice with the Allies, and to ended hostilities in the Middle Eastern theater between the Ottoman Empire and the Allies of World War I. Okay, a lot of people don't necessarily understand what was going on. Okay, so what's the Mudros Armistice? Let's do a little bit of World War I history now. Okay, now this is very important. This is the reason why World War I, all they talk about is trenches and what, no man's land and yellow mustard gas. They don't go into the political implications of what happened during, okay, the Armistice of Mudros ended hostilities between the Ottoman Empire, right, and the allies of World War I. It was signed by the Ottoman Minister of Marine Affairs, Rauf Bey, okay, and the British Admiral Somerset Arthur Calthorpe on board. As part of several conditions, the Ottomans surrendered the remaining garrisons outside Anatolia, as well as the granted allies the right to occupy forts, controlling areas, the right to occupy the same in case of disorder, any Ottoman territory in the event of a threat to their security. Ottoman army, including the Ottoman Air Force, was demobilized. All ports, railways, and other strategic points were made available for use by the Allies. In the Caucasus, the Ottomans had to retreat to within the pre-war borders between the Ottoman and the Russian empires. Okay, the armistice was followed by the occupation of Constantinople. Okay, by who? British, French, and Italian forces, and the subsequent partitioning of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, we talk about divvying up Europe, but they don't ever talk about partitioning the Ottoman Empire. It imposed harsh terms, but it was never ratified by the Ottoman Parliament in Istanbul. The Ottoman Parliament was officially disbanded by the Allies on 11th of April 1920 due to the overwhelming opposition of the Turkish MPs to the provisions discussed in Sevres. Afterwards, the Turkish War of Independence was fought from 1919 to 1923. Yeah, I would fight a War of Independence too if you just totally just destroyed my parliament and you disbanded my government. Yeah, I might do a independence fight too. The Grand National Assembly of Turkey, all right, and its followers became the new de facto government of Turkey. The Armistice of Mudros was superseded by the Treaty of Lausanne. Okay, following the Turkish victory in the War of Independence. Interesting. So now we got another treaty. Treaty of Lausanne. Peace treaty during the conference in 1922-1923. Again, this is all during World War I, guys. A lot of stuff they don't tell you during and after World War I, especially in Turkey or in the Ottoman Empire. It was signed in Switzerland. It officially settled the conflict that had originally existed between the Ottoman Empire and the Allied French Republic, British Empire, Kingdom of Italy, Empire of Japan, Kingdom of Greece, and the Kingdom of Romania since the onset of World War I. The original text of the treaty is in French. It was the result of a second attempt at peace after the failed Treaty of Sèvres. It failed. The earlier treaty had been signed by all previous parties except the Kingdom of Greece, but later rejected by the Turkish national movement, who fought against its terms. The parties accepted the Treaty of Lausanne, ended the conflict, and defined the borders of the modern Turkish Republic. In the treaty, Turkey gave up all claims to the remainder of the Ottoman Empire, and returned the Allies recognized Turkish sovereignty within its new borders. Interesting. It provided for the Greek-Turkish populations exchange and allowed unresisted civilian and military passage through the Turkish Straits. All right, officially adopted. So again, we're looking at huge implications on a geopolitical scale. This all comes from just talking about Caucasians. All right, now let's get to the modern era. Now we're talking about Turkey. Once Mustafa Kemal Atatürk led the Turkish War of Independence, he united the Turkish Muslim majority and successfully led them in overthrowing the occupying forces out of what the Turkish national movement considered the Turkish homeland. The Turkish identity became the unifying force when in 1923 the Treaty of Lausanne was signed. The newly founded Republic of Turkey was formally established. Ataturk's presidency was marked by a series of radical political and social reforms that transformed Turkey into a secular modern republic with civil and political equality for sectarian minorities and women. Turks as well as other Muslims from the Balkans, the Middle East, Soviet Union continued to arrive in Turkey. Most of them settled in urban northwestern Anatolia. The bulk of these immigrants, known as muhajirs, 10 million Ottoman Muslim citizens born after the onset, who emigrated to Thrace and Anatolia. Interesting. Were the Balkan Turks who faced harassment and discrimination in their homelands. However, there were still remnants of a Turkish population in many of these countries because the Turkish government wanted to preserve these communities so that the Turkish character could be maintained. One of the last stages of ethnic Turks immigrating to Turkey between 1940 and 1990. 700,000 Turks arrived from Bulgaria. Today, between a third and a quarter of Turkey's population are the descendants of these immigrants. So we're looking at Turkey, the connections to Caucasia and the Caucasian, right? The Keralaxis culture, right? To its expansion to today and how it all applies. All right. Hopefully this can give you some type of better idea of that, simply calling somebody Caucasian or going into Caucasia isn't as simple as one may think. The Caucasian culture is a very vast, it is a quagmire to say the least. There really is a huge discrepancy in what we know and what we've been told. So with that, I'm gonna leave y'all. It's your boy Vinny L. Follow Truth of the Mind. I'm coming, working on some stuff for the future, working on some things. But whenever I get a chance like this, just to go through some stuff, I think it'll be really nice just to, just go through some of this information and just give a little bit of a clearing of the air in reference to certain terms that we use. Because honestly, I'm so sick of people using the term Caucasian and white and black and Indo-European and all this crap. So again, it's your boy Vinny L. Guys, follow me, Instagram, VKID_. You can follow me at Truth of the Mind. Check me out on YouTube, Facebook. Holla at me. Peace.